So the next article I wanted to take a look at is entitled, "There Are More COVID Cases at COVID-Denying Pastor John MacArthur's Church." This is by Hemant Mehta on the Friendly Atheist website. So let's give the article a read and see what it has to say. For months now, we've been talking about the COVID denial of Pastor John MacArthur of Grace Community Church in California. This is a person who openly celebrated the lack of social distancing and face masks in his congregation, once telling a packed house, "The good news is that you're here, you're not distancing, and you're not wearing masks." In August, he falsely claimed there is no pandemic. I actually went in search of these clips because I wanted to pull them up, which I do intend to watch one of them, but the one where he said that there was no pandemic, that's been taken down by YouTube, surprisingly. Rightfully so, honestly. I think it was a good idea for YouTube to take it down. They shouldn't leave that shit up. That's misinformation, and he's in a position of authority as a pastor and shouldn't be saying stupid shit that's not true. So, anyways, this is a clip from where he openly celebrated the lack of social distancing. Let me expand on it and tell you what happened here. He basically got an order from the city that he needed to do certain specific things. For example, he needed to have somebody, one of his, ministerial servants or deacons or whatever the hell they call them, needed to have one of those people outside with a head thermometer, like one of these right here, and put it up to everybody's head that wants to come into the church, hit the button, and scan people. Make sure nobody has a fever when they walk into the church. He refused. What is that? What's it cost? $50 for the piece of equipment, max, and the time of one deacon? He couldn't do something that fucking simple? Another request from the city is for everybody to wear face masks while they're inside. Simple request. What's so fucking hard about that, right? Barring that, if he didn't want to do that, he could alternatively hold service outside with 200 people instead of 1,000. Didn't want to do that either. Wanted to have all 1,000 people or 2,000 people inside with no masks. That's what he wanted, and that's what he did. So this is the service that he held after being told by the city to do those basic things and refusing. Let's watch it.
We're having church. It's actually hard to figure out exactly what the city is trying to do.
No, it was perfectly fucking clear. They gave you a checklist. There was no ambiguity to this. This guy's a monster.
With us and to us, but we know they don't want us to do exactly what we're doing.
That's exactly right. They don't want you to be a fucking idiot and risk people's lives. And guess what happened? Guess what happened as a result of this? People got sick. Let's keep watching. We'll get to that.
Right now. And we're not meeting. We're not meeting because we want to be rebellious. We're meeting because our Lord has commanded us.
If he wasn't meeting to be rebellious, but was solely meeting because the Lord commanded him to, and he was setting out to not be rebellious, he would have followed basic fucking guidelines. Basic guidelines. Just get one of these things out there. That's all he had to do. Scan people's temperatures before they walk in. That is it. If he didn't want to be rebellious, if he just wanted to meet, he could have gotten one of these. He wanted to be rebellious. Don't let him pull one over on you.
Together and worship him. There was a court order that granted this church and this church alone the right to meet indoors, and the powers of the city were not happy about that.
I wonder why. Why weren't they happy, do you think? Do you think it's because maybe you're going to get people killed? This video came out a few months ago when all of this was at its peak and people were really struggling. And guess what? He got people killed. That's exactly what happened. We have the benefit of hindsight now. And we know for a fact that people got sick and died because of what he did at this meeting.
They were going to be asking us to do two things, social distance and wear masks. That was until yesterday when the city, we agreed, look, we'll we'll comply for a few weeks. They asked that for 3 weeks. We're not wanting to be defiant. We will do what is reasonable.
We'll do what's reasonable. What's reasonable is getting one of these things right here and having everybody wear masks. That's fucking reasonable. Nothing unreasonable about that, right? He refused to do even those two basic steps.
That was not enough for the city, so they went to the appellate court at the last minute on Saturday late and had that order removed. So the good news is you're here, you're not distancing, and you're not wearing masks.
Why is that good news? I don't understand. What's good news about that? Why is he reveling in the fact that he's getting people sick actively right now? This service that we're seeing right here, this got people sick. I don't understand why he's happy about that. This is fucking mind-blowing to me. Anyway, let's keep reading the original article here. This is back to Hemant Mehta. And then in October, there was an outbreak at his church. The LA County Department of Public Health confirmed 3 cases had been traced back to the ministry. That number soon grew to 5. MacArthur denied the seriousness of this, basically writing off a small handful of positive tests in a congregation of thousands. That's literally exactly what happened in the United States. People wrote off a few cases in a country of millions. And look at the case growth now. He can't be this stupid, can he? Is he really this stupid? By mid-November, whatever temporary restrictions the church had instituted were gone. We're now finding out that the COVID cover-up at his church goes far deeper than MacArthur would ever let on. Reporter Julie Roy spoke with a church leader who asked to remain anonymous, but whose identity she confirmed, who said there are staffers with COVID, professors at MacArthur's school who have COVID, members of the church's Filipino ministry who have COVID, including one person who's in the hospital. Holy shit. And all of that is separate from another allegedly well-connected person who posted on Medium about the COVID denial at the church. This is a quote from the Medium website. 2 weeks ago, the Grace staff Christmas party lunch was served and maskless elderly and elders sat shoulder to shoulder, hugged and shook hands, and along with the filet mignon were spoon-fed the following from John MacArthur. 1. COVID PCR tests are inaccurate and should not be trusted. We'll get to the rest in a second. I just want to mention the PCR test. PCR stands for polymerase chain reaction. It says here, polymerase chain reaction is a method widely used to rapidly make millions to billions of copies of a specific DNA sample, allowing scientists to take a very small sample of DNA and amplify it to a large enough amount to study in detail. So basically the idea behind the PCR test, they have the DNA in there and they compare it to what's coming out of your nose. Like they stick the swab up your nose and test it and compare it to the DNA that they have on file, pretty much. The PCR tests are 100% accurate if it's positive. It's exactly like a pregnancy test. If the pregnancy test detects the hormone, I think it is, in your system, then you're pregnant, period. There are no ifs, ands, or buts about it. There are no false positives with pregnancy tests or with this COVID PCR test. There are false negatives, though. What he said here, COVID PCR tests are inaccurate and should not be trusted. They should be trusted if they're positive, but there's no guarantee that you don't have it if it says it's negative. It may have just not detected it. Maybe it wasn't enough yet to detect. This is just another unique way of framing it to instill a level of distrust in the tests. It's bullshit. It's propagandistic bullshit. Number 2, don't take the vaccine as it's just a money ploy. Number 3, Grace is welcoming 400 new members, i.e. don't scare them. Let them think that everything is fine. Number 4, the giving is the best it's ever been. And ultimately, that's all that really matters, isn't it? All that really matters is that people are putting money in that fucking collection plate. This is really the core of the message, isn't it? Money is what matters, and the fact that we're getting it right now. That's what matters. That's what he cares about. Downplay it. Pretend nothing's going on. Pretend everything is fine as long as we're still filling those fucking collection plates. And number 5, there are no long-term side effects to COVID. That is factually wrong. In fact, One of my favorite singers from one of my favorite bands, Maynard James Keenan from Tool, he actually got COVID in February, I think. He did an interview about it recently. And he says he still has coughing fits, like to this day. There are long-term side effects to this, period. You can pretend there aren't. You can deny it. That's just what it is. Number 4 is the most telling one. The giving is the best it's ever been. But what blows my fucking mind about the whole thing really is number 2. Don't take the vaccine as it's just a money ploy. Why would he do that? If there is a way to make this situation better, to alleviate pain and suffering, to make his congregation safer, to make his flock safer, why isn't he doing it? Is it because he doesn't want to look like a fool? What is it? Let's keep reading the article. This is Hemant Mehta speaking. That same person noted that 7 people at the party have since tested positive for COVID. Obviously, that hasn't been confirmed. Royce also points out that a number of Facebook posts, including some in private groups associated with MacArthur's church, have talked about COVID cases among church members. Maybe the most frightening thing about this Christian death cult is this passage. Quote, I spoke with multiple members of Grace Community Church this week who said they were scared of speaking out about the outbreak for fear of retribution. Some said they feared losing their jobs. Others said they feared being ostracized and losing their community. Big surprise. Something that you tend to find in cults is shunning. That's one of the hallmarks of a cult. The fact that they're afraid of being shunned is very telling. This is Hemant Mehta. I've said this before, but it's worth asking again. How many people have to die before the leaders of this church take COVID seriously? What's the body count? How many positive tests do they need to see before they just move things online for the safety of all their members? I don't think the safety of the members matters, honestly. I wondered this, though. Like, say the death count was 90%. Say that was the mortality rate. Would they care then? Would they move online then? He's got to fear for his own life in this, right? He's older. Look at him. He's an older guy. Does he separate himself from the congregation so he knows he's not going to catch it from him? Like Trump going to his rallies and not getting anywhere near any of the participants? Does he not care about the well-being of the other people at all, even if it was a 90% mortality rate? I bet he doesn't. I would be willing to bet. Back to Hemant Mehta. Or will they continue denying what experts figured out a long time ago, even if it leads to more suffering for their own members? This is a church that has every ability to move online if it wants to. The production quality would be high, and the sermons could be seen by anyone who wants to watch. But moving online would mean admitting epidemiologists and other scientists were right about the virus, and these Christians are way too stubborn to admit scientists have a better grasp on reality than the Bible. MacArthur has also made it clear he doesn't give a damn about anyone's health. He wants to meet in person, he wants the collection plate to be passed around, and he wants to live in a fantasy world where the 300,000 plus Americans who've died from it so far are all involved in some kind of liberal hoax. Unfortunately, there are thousands of gullible Christians who would rather listen to him than the people who actually know what they're talking about. MacArthur won't suffer. He has money. They don't. When will they realize no one at this church cares about them? Honestly, I don't think they will ever realize that. Something tells me that these people are ready to buckle in for the long haul. They're going to ride this out for better or worse. But I do wonder, some of the people from his church or from other churches, some of the people from Tony Spell's church, Life Tabernacle, you remember that one? Or Kenneth Copeland's church or any others. I wonder what they're thinking while they lay on their deathbeds. I wonder if they're thinking to themselves, I made a mistake trusting these people.